I'd like to call the meeting to order. Planning Board meeting for October 15th, 2015. Do a roll call of the members. Steve Rhodes, Rebecca Hansen, John Kelly, Brian Dutel. Welcome, Brian, brand new Planning Board member. Steve Whitman, Bill Bolton. And do we have any public comments that are not related to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to administrative matters. The first one is a site plan review, PID 212021 and 212022 for Kirk's Automotive and Kirk's Motorcycles. This is expansion of use at 491, 495 Tenny Mountain Highway. So the first step is to consider whether this application is complete or not. I don't know if anyone from Kirk's wants to address this at this time, or should we just?
I don't really know what I would address at that.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's complete.
All right. We have the planner report for this in front of us. Do we have any comments from the board?
Looks complete.
Okay, do I need to have a motion on completion of the application?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Rebecca. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? So the application has been approved as complete. At this time, if anyone from Kirk's would like to explain, or we can just open it up to the board members for questions. Okay, any questions from the board regarding the application?
Well, we had that packet of information that was on our sites when we came to the meeting, and there's quite a bit of, I guess, concern that was raised by Cindy Prescott, and just wondering if they need to be, discussed as far as, there was like a drainage issue, and
Well, there's quite a lot of information here from Mrs. Prescott, which is great stuff. I think maybe the board should take a few minutes. This just came in today, so maybe we can take 3 or 4 minutes to read through it and then follow up with questions.
sure.
Okay, does anyone from the board have any questions or comments relating to the information from Cindy Prescott?
I think she raises quite a few questions, and I know we've kind of had a brief discussion at a select board work session and discussed the improvements that have been made by Kirk's as far as moving vehicles to a more nondescript area, and so I guess the issue remains too that his business is kind of mandated that like impounded cars that the state police and local police put on his property shall remain there for weeks, until they can be cleared. So I guess that's just an issue that's, part of the business. I don't know if there's, a couple things that could be done to kind of remediate, some of the site issues that the neighbors have been having. Either screening, I understand screening is not maybe an option because the screening itself has to be fairly tall in order to actually impede any kind of view. And should the screening be placed to not impact other areas, then you'd be looking at a screen pretty much. But
John?
Does anybody know on the board, or maybe Brian does, what the situation was as far as prep contractors, where they built that fence out in front of there? Was that required?
I don't believe so, but that was before I came here.
We had
I don't have the history.
we had a similar situation with a business down on Route 3, and they had a lot of basically roofing materials and things like that, and eventually they was there for 3, 4, 5 years, and eventually I believe that the selectmen required prep contractors to build this stockade type fence out in front, which improved the looks 1,000%. And I'd like to know what why they did it, and if it was required by them, I would assume it would be required by this particular firm too. But it's not something you can answer tonight. It's something that has to be researched, and maybe Paul might be able to tell us as far as that's concerned, since Brian wasn't here at the time.
I haven't looked into the file either, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, I know. But I really believe that maybe we should wait until we find out what the results of that is. Because if one has to have the stockade fence in front to make it most aesthetic view, then it would behoove this person here to do the same thing, I would assume. And basically, I don't believe this firm would be hurt materially if they had a fence out front there, because it is not the most beautiful view in the world as it sets down. It probably would improve it with a nice fence in front of it.
Steve,
Well, it just seems like we should be hearing from the applicant, because it's their
Um,
application for the site plan.
right. So George, did you have some comments to make?
Yeah, do you want me to step up or?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're comfortable.
Please state your name.
George Kirk. I'm the troublemaker.
We don't want to have a conversation without you.
Can I have a copy of the list of the complaints that they turned out? To this day, I've never had a conversation with her about what she's upset about. As you know, I bought this property from them. And Dennis was well aware of what I did for a living when I bought it from him. And part of my conversation with him was I'm the only guy he thought that did enough things to be able to pull off to pay for the property. Well, that's what I'm doing. My business hasn't changed. We have some issues with the state of New Hampshire. They put in all these new rules that they weren't prepared to do the paperwork to keep up with the rules. So vehicles that we used to be able to tow in and junk in 30 days, now they sit for months because we wait for the paperwork, and then we have to sometimes do auctions and all this other stuff. So we've got a huge backlog of things going on. And that's kind of catching up now, but it's still nowhere near what the law says it has to be. We can't comply with the law because the state can't get the paperwork done in time to be in compliance. So that's a huge problem. And, you know, I won't say that my housekeeping's been the best. You know, we're shorthanded, we've got stuff all over the place. Brian has helped me a lot trying to work with me to get things cleaned up, and we've made some serious strides in doing that. But I have no control over, if I tow 30 cars for different police departments, I have to store them. And my insurance and the regulations from the police departments dictate where those cars are going to be. I don't have the right to move them to various places that aren't on my insurance policy because I have to provide coverage. I have a lot south of town that we used to store all the vehicles in. I can't secure it. We put a fence there. We put things down there that are valuable. They smash the windows, they steal the radios. You can't do it, you know. So we put the ones that are junk and we know aren't going to be picked up quickly, but we have to go through this paperwork process down there.
George, just a question. Are there any vehicles on the property that do not fall into that category that could be considered junk and could be removed?
At this point, we've pretty much got rid of all of that. We've taken a ton of stuff out of there. We have vehicles, you know, we're a car dealer as well. So the front line, as far as putting a stockade fence across the front, I mean, I'm a car dealer. You're going to kill me. I can't, you know, it's just impractical for our business. We buy smashed cars, we fix them, and we sell them. We do that quite a bit. We can have 5 or 6 wrecked vehicles back there, sometimes more. Depends on what we buy at the auction. And it takes time to get the parts and to put them together. And I mean, you know, I want to be a good neighbor, and I apologize that you've been so upset with me, but I think a lack of communication has been a big part of it.
In July at Harmony Metal Products, you said to me, we are gonna get to that real soon.
It's hell gotten worse. How can you say it's gotten worse? Oh, well, I guess that's opinion. We're not here to argue. We had a 5-word conversation standing next to Rick about we're cleaning the yard up. Well, you're making a statement that's not true. No, I'm not. Again, you know, in my opinion, there's been no conversation. We haven't walked around the lot with them at all. I got told about, I kept a storage trailer in the back corner of the property that kind of separated them from us. She demanded that that trailer be moved because it blocked her view of the window to see Tenny Mountain Highway. So trying to be a good neighbor, even though it's on my property, I moved the trailer. Well, when I moved the trailer, that was the block between the two of us. Now she looked in the back of the yard there where all the stuff was stored, and then that's when all this happened. You know, second thought, I never should have moved the trailer. That's in my opinion. But I try to be a good neighbor, and that's what I did. And that's, you know, kind of what's brought us to this. I mean, it's never going to be an empty parking lot. It's just not going to happen. I have to be able to use the lot to do the business. I've been there for, I don't know, almost 10 years now or something. You know, we do a service for the town. It's not a pleasant service most of the time. You know, we solve problems for the town, the state. When trucks flip over and crash, we clean those messes up. You know, I mean, I don't know where else to go with that other than it's not a pretty thing that we do. You know, we try to keep the majority of that out behind the building, which, like I said, I kept the trailer there to keep that separated. And we've cleaned up a lot of stuff.
Bill?
So fencing would be kind of counterproductive if you put it on the front. If you put it in the back, you probably it wouldn't be as high as a trailer, or you probably wouldn't.
Well, the trailer's 14 feet.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I mean, I'll put the trailer back in the corner. I mean, that totally blocks it. You can't, you know, at that point. I mean, I could do that. And I understand she wants to see out of her window. I mean, we can, you know, I don't know. I think some conversations between them and us would have been a lot easier.
John?
Just a point of interest, back quite a few years ago, my brother had a body shop. And at that point, Lady Bird Johnson got it into her head that all junkyards and unsightly yards would have a stockade fence around it. So they actually got funds from the federal government, and they made them all appear, junkyards and everything else, to put all their unsightly vehicles out back, and they built a stockade fence at that point so that it didn't, destroy the view as people were driving by.
Rebecca?
Just want to make sure that I'm understanding, we're all understanding. The reason why Mr. Kirk is here is to really, to me, it looks like it's to deal with a parking issue and for us to either approve or not approve the expansion of the site to include 35 extra parking spaces. So I think there's a lot of other things that we're bouncing around here, but the issue at hand is really just this part, the parking spaces.
To bring it into compliance.
Right.
Right.
But
So,
one interlocks with the other, because if it's unsightly now with what there is now and the business keeps growing, do we have any assurance that it won't be a bigger parking lot with the same type of, eventually the same type of congestion and unsightly area or parts with a bigger lot, that's all. So I think one interlocks with the other.
We're not trying to make the parking lot bigger. We're just trying to use more of the square footage that's already there legally to park. There's tons of space there that, if you follow the parking plan that was originally there, we can't use any of the space. So we're looking to be able to legally use more to be in compliance.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I guess to go to Rebecca's point, I'm wondering if we discuss screening between the two adjacent properties. If this was a site plan for anyone else and they were coming in, we'd have them screening their trash facilities and all kinds of other stuff. And it seems like the real impact is on that rear lot line between the storage business and Mr. Kirk's business. And so I'm wondering if that could be part of this approval, is in order to get the spots figured out, if we could come to some agreement on screening while we're here.
Well, I'm not opposed to putting a stockade fence between her office and my thing, if that helps.
I mean, I would agree that doing it across the frontage isn't going to make
No.
sense at all either for
No,
the use that
and
you
I mean, the
have.
back is all wooded, so I mean, it's the side where her view, I guess, would be, if that helps. I mean,
Bill?
Actually, could you describe where the house that is of concern,
it's an office.
and, we've got like a floor plan here of the parking lots and the storage containers.
Right, well,
Is the office like at this upper?
it's at the front corner there.
Index finger, Bill.
Okay, like over here?
Where is it?
It's at the extreme easterly or westerly side of that
Okay.
front row.
And could I ask a further question? So the storage container is like, oh, crap, is it like here? Like where my,
It would be where your finger is,
yeah,
oriented towards John.
oh, so that way?
Right.
Okay.
There is an elevation difference at the lot line. It's approximately 10 feet higher in the back than it is at George's. All along the back.
So fencing along the area that's being proposed as new parking area, probably, it wouldn't solve the issue of, any kind of like a view thing.
especially
Okay.
with the elevation change.
Yep.
Do they need a license for junkyards in Plymouth?
Yeah, define junk.
And you're in compliance with that?
Oh, absolutely. We have a meeting next week with the junkyard people.
Okay.
We've already gone through that once with them,
Okay.
and we got passed with flying colors. We weren't a junkyard.
Now, this one shows a little bit different. Where's their office at that point?
All right, so
So this is higher,
What are we looking at here?
works down in.
So this is Plymouth
This is-
Highway,
this-
and
Yeah, this,
so,
See it on the,
you know, these are containers, I guess, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be like here's where the parking space is gonna go.
on the back. This is the back
Yeah,
side.
the back side of
Yeah.
the line.
And where's Prescott's place?
Apparently, this must be it.
No,
That's not it?
these are George's. This is the right-of-way leading back to the mini storage.
Yep.
The office is here.
No.
Oh. Oh. That's strange. Uh, Who came first? Did you own the property and have this operation prior to the Prescotts?
I bought the property from the Prescotts.
Right, and they reserved their office out of that?
Two separate parcels,
What's that?
Two separate parcels.
So, were you there?
Parcels in question.
Right, okay. But were you there prior to him buying the property?
owned the building.
Obviously you did, yeah.
But we're talking about two totally separate
Yeah.
entities. Excel Management Company, which is my company, owned the building, and yes, we did sell it to Mr. Kirk.
Yeah.
The storage buildings were owned by a separate entity. It's different and totally different than Excel Management Company. But I hope I get a chance to speak before you
yeah.
guys decide.
Okay.
I mean, the bottom line for me is, I mean, we want to be a good neighbor to everybody. We don't want to have anybody get this upset with us. That's counterproductive to everything. But at the same token, my business model is much different than the business model that was there before. We do a lot more things. We have a lot more going on. Just our own fleet, our own vehicles of our fleet and equipment take up almost all the parking spaces that are allotted.
Well, it seems to me there's two issues here. There's the issue that's actually before us in the site plan review, which is additional parking spaces. And then there's the possibility of asking Kirk's to put out some type of screen that would be acceptable to the neighbor, which is kind of a separate issue. Is that how people kind of see this right now? All right, so what's the mechanism for getting that to happen? I mean, how high is the fence? What's it made of? And where is it placed exactly, and so on and so forth.
Before we do that, should we give a chance for the
Yeah,
butters to
The new-
weigh in on the
new
conversation?
addition.
Well, we actually haven't started the public hearing.
Okay.
We're still kind of in the discovery process.
Sure.
But why don't we move
This
to
is
the
the
public hearing
orientation.
now?
This is the
And if
parking.
George has anything to add, he can add, or
So
anyone else
he's
can
gonna
add.
add
We'll
to this.
Hear from the people that are in
It's just
opposition.
gonna go.
Because I would just say, if we can resolve tonight the site plan
So where
that
is it
George
now?
has filed, and we can address the butter
Just right
concerns,
back
so
in the
that
building.
this doesn't fall back in Brian's lap.
Okay.
So if we can do whatever we can as a planning board to make, then Brian can do any other enforcement over, because it sounds like you're having conversations, so.
Okay, so we're gonna open the public hearing on this project. It is now about 7 minutes to 7. And if anyone would like to speak in favor of the application, please do so. If anyone would like to speak in opposition, you may speak, and please state your name and your. Actually not in opposition, but it's not in favor. So, that being said, my name's Dennis Prescott. I've been in this little town for a very long time. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I did at one time own that building where George is. And this isn't about George's parking per se, okay? And let's start with the fence. If you put up a fence, you put a trailer next to the property line, you block her signage, you block her access, and she can't use it for her business. I think George has number business. He's got limo, he's got towing, he's got repair, motorcycles. He's got all kinds of stuff going on there. Does he need parking? Yes. It's not our problem with parking. Yes, he needs parking. The problem we have is I had a plan done many years ago that you all have. That piece of paper you have is a copy of my original plan with some more lines drawn onto it. Now, some of the concerns we have is not just the parking. If the parking was abided by, we'd have no real issues. But it's in combination to the junkyard issue. There's tires, there's gas tanks, there's motors, there's all kinds of other items outside. Your town ordinance requires a special exception. It is at a town level, not a state level.
So if he does not have a permit from this board or a special exception from your town, he does not have a permit by the state's rules, which is in that packet we gave you. That being said, if George had parking for his oversized vehicles, buses, tractor trailer trucks he tows in, I'm not asking George to go out of business. I did sell him a business. He's got a great business. I like George, Mr. Kirk. So this is not a neighbor thing. He brought up neighbor many, many times. My wife had tried at least 2 or 3 times to go in his office to talk to George about it, left a message with somebody at the counter. Please have George get into contact with me. George never did. George and I have actually discussed this a couple of times prior. My wife not wanting to be outside the rules or whatever, we approached the town almost 2 years ago, okay? 2 years ago next month. That's why it's been long enough. That's why we're here today. That's why George put in his application. She's trying to run a business also, okay? And when somebody comes into the business and says, or calls the business and says, oh, you're the one behind the junkyard, and her employee has to say, well, no, what? That's not good, okay? She's getting impacted financially because of the congestion down front. Now, some of those pictures we took today, there's a motor out in the driveway, there's standing water on the site, there's double and triple parking in places, there's equipment, there's all kinds of things. So my suggestion would be maybe the board should take the time to go out and actually walk the property, because I know you do that, and see what you're actually looking at before you approve the parking. And then I ask, if you do approve the parking, that you don't put any trailers up her side or into her building. 14 feet would be in front of her window. Her employee would not be able to see a customer coming in until he actually arrived. Okay? And by blocking that corner off, it's really counterproductive for everybody. We're not asking them to do much. We've asked for 2 years to clean up that side of the building. Okay? Motors, tires, waterborne disease, I mean, I can go on and on. I don't want to be here anymore than George does. But if he gets a new permit, if he gets a new parking permit, all we ask is that it's enforced like I was. I was owner of the building. Tim Snow had the parking. That's where that site plan came from. I was going to get fined $275 a day, and I didn't even own the business. So all I'm asking is the town do its job. Simple.
So the side of the building you're referring to is the west side of the building?
The westerly side is her access up to the back.
So that's where the main problem is?
The main problem is down that side, but also, you know, because Mr. Kirk has so many things in his business, in different types of business, Matco truck pulls in the other day, parks right in front of her driveway to go inside and do business. Well, her customers can't get up back because George doesn't have any place left to park. What?
There's no open parking.
Yeah, I mean, it's full. So he does need parking, but he's already full. He's already filled every space that you're considering giving him. And our concern is large vehicles up that side of the building. The other problem we have, and God forbid there's a fire in the back of that building, the fire department can't get there 99% of the time. Now that's an opinion. Maybe it's 90, maybe it's 80. But everywhere else on this highway, and I've built a fair amount of it, you require an ingress and egress around the building at least 20 feet wide. You cannot drive around that building with a fire truck today. And yes, he has done some work, but when he makes gains, and George is busy. He is. He's a busy guy. There's a lot of stuff he does. So unfortunately, when he gets busy doing his work, clutter continues to collect, and it collects on her side of the building. So all we're asking is, we don't need a stockade fence, don't even really want one, because it will block a view. If it was a junkyard, it's a minimum of an 8-foot fence, and it has to be barricaded from all public accesses. That means in front of her building. And that means you impact her building. So you can't have a stockade fence high enough to be out of public view because she's a public business. Is there any other question I can answer? Again, I'm not trying to be adversarial with Mr. Kirk. I like George. But we have to have a solution for our business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak either in favor or opposition or neutral to the project? George?
So you come up or edge, Dan?
You're pretty loud.
Okay. As far as the Mack tool trucks and that stuff, when those guys pulling in park, that driveway over there is, I don't know, how many feet is that driveway? 50 feet, 40 feet wide? Those trucks are 8 feet. There's plenty of room to drive around them, and they're only there for 10, 15 minutes. And, you know, I've asked every one of them to oblige her with not parking there. So at this point now, they're not doing that anymore. Secondly, all the engines and transmissions that were on the ground out there have been removed. Yes, we pulled an engine out of a Waterville Valley bus yesterday. It did not get put in the building immediately. It got put in this morning first thing. The bus has been removed. It's not there. So the minute that thing got took apart, it was removed. Brian can attest that all the engines and transmissions that were on the other side of the building were removed weeks ago. There hasn't been any there, period. We answered that problem. The tires that were out on the side of the building, the big piles, those were put in the trailer. There's one small pile there that's, I mean, I could build a fence thing around it. That's where the tire stores that we buy tires from, Dennis was in the tire business, he knows. They come every week and they pick those tires up and then more get put there. So it's not the same stack of tires. I don't have any issue with making a containment for that so that she doesn't have to see it. I mean, we're continually working to improve, and we've emptied that side. Everything is out of that side, really. There's some rims over there, and there's the one set of tires that they pick up weekly.
Any other comments from the public at this time? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing at 2 minutes after 7. And we are back to discussion with the board. It sounds like to me that the stockade fence is, at least an entire fence, is not really of interest to either party. Defendants are more interested in having a cleaner view.
So it looks like that western side where the trailer had been parked is some of the least pavement of the site.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the tires could be screened and some of the other things could be, some of the other clutter could be removed from that area, that might rectify it as part of approving this parking.
But it's this is the side where it's the worst, right?
Right, but it's also, it seems like it's relatively the smallest, that western side.
Yeah, it's a narrow corridor down the side of the
And
building.
then some of your other parking is between the two buildings that you own on the two
Correct.
properties?
The bulk of it is between the buildings. The only vehicles now that are parked on the right side of the building are the employees' cars when they come to work and they leave at night, for the most part. If anything, it's one. You know, there may be a customer car that they're working on that they pushed out of a bay for the day, but that's it.
And free trade.
Okay.
And 2 of the trailers were there when I bought the property from them.
So, I don't know if this is an issue that we can address this evening or at all with this proposal, but it's something I do want to bring up every time we have a proposal before us, is the stormwater management issue. And, you know, even if these sites are not paved, it's likely not permeable, the substance or the gravel or whatever it is. So it does seem to be, there is potential water quality concern coming from this area. So I just want to bring it up. I don't necessarily have an answer or know if this is the right time to discuss it with this proposal, but and I also wanted to, I'm hearing the word junkyard a lot. We do have a very specific junkyard definition in our zoning ordinance, and I'm not sure if this, I'm not making any judgment whether or not that we're dealing with a junkyard or not, but we do have that definition there. So,
Brian, do you have any comment on whether it falls under the definition or not?
Whether it does or not,
Yes.
that's not the subject on the table tonight.
I'm saying again?
That is something that's administered either through the Board of Selectmen or the zoning board.
Yeah.
Mitigation. of, going forward is essentially
Okay.
what we're talking about.
We have two issues. We have the parking issue, and then we have a issue as far as the junkyard, and I believe the selectman and the code enforcement officer would be involved in that, right, Brian?
That's right, John.
So it really has nothing to do with us, as far as whether it's classified as a junkyard and have the proper licenses and permits and so forth. So
The visual impact
Yeah, we're not,
of the
yeah,
trucking business and the fleet and the other are pretty much equal, but they're addressed through two different avenues, is all I'm saying. The one would inform the other, as far as the mitigation of the way they look.
Well, as far as addressing the cleanup issue, anybody on the board have a suggestion on how we might encourage that to happen?
I don't believe we've got the authority for that. I think that's selectmen's problem.
Bill?
And I know the code enforcement officer has been working with Mr. Kirk, and Mr. Kirk has, made pains to clean up the area. So whatever might be left is probably up for discussion.
Okay.
Sounded like fencing in the tires for as the tires are circulating through. I mean, it was offered by the property owner as a possibility to deal with the issue there. And that would be something that we'd require other site plans, especially where there's a regular movement of material.
But I have one question, and that is to the future. He's cleaned this up now, but as Mr. Prescott said, he gets busy and everything like that, and then all of a sudden it gets back to being unsightly, for a better word. So we're going to address this now and allow the parking and so forth, but tomorrow, if we pass this, tomorrow he can start in all over again, and it gets unsightly again. So, is there any possible way we can at least suggest that I don't know, whether there'd be an inspection or whether they, I don't know how to, the authorization of it or anything, or the enforcement of it, but I don't believe we should just leave it carte blanche right now and then allow him to do whatever he wants to in the future.
Bill?
I think that's a matter of, code enforcement and some of them to issue a complaint, and, that would be done on a complaint kind of issue. I mean,
All right. Somewhat like that.
yeah, I don't think we could monitor it or.
That was the recommendation in the planner report from Sharon. So she, thought that if we were to grant the site plan approval for the parking, that then there would be continued code enforcement, monitoring of the parking and whatever storage parameters are identified in the site plan.
Okay.
So, because I think John's right, it's a slippery slope. There could be another owner. A lot of things can happen.
Okay.
We asked for no trailers on the property line.
No trailers on the
Looks like
property
you guys
line.
are making a decision to approve that as it's on there. And he's got 2 trailers against your property line, which is counterproductive to her business.
Sir, Hannaford got in trouble because they had the trailers sitting there, and I think I believe there's some part of the code that indicates there cannot be any portable trailers on Tenny Mountain Highway. I'm not too sure about that, but what's that?
I think they were supposed to be screened. I remember that was quite a few years ago.
Yeah, Hannaford was
Parking, but not trailers.
remodeling their store, and they had a lot of stuff in those trailers, and they were trying to kick the trailers out in the parking lot. So I don't know. I don't know the intricacies of it, but I do know that happened. So it could be under the same thing with these trailers here. It's not there can't be storage trailers on Tenny Mountain Highway. You know more about that
I've
than I
never
would.
heard anything like that.
Okay.
Well, we just approved, an application for the, Tenny Mountain Highway to approve, we approved the trailer. What was the, not,
I want to help you out, but I
the
don't.
housing
The
thing that.
Habitat for Humanity.
Habitat for
Oh,
Humanity.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Right, we approved a storage trailer in the back in lieu of
Right.
just putting stuff stacked around and so on and so forth.
And I don't see where the trailers might be visible from Tenny Mountain Highway. I mean, you got.
No, we're talking about in front of that place.
Oh, yeah.
So the two trailers that you're referring to are where?
Well, there's, if I recall, I don't have the site plan, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one identified as being on the property line, I just circled it there. And then there are a couple next to the building.
I do know that Hannaford, there was an issue when Hannaford did those trailers
And that's where it was before that it was a problem.
for, after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, they were. But, yeah, they're concerned that they would stack, because it took up so much part, as I recall.
Or was that one?
anything down this back.
Yeah.
Just these three trailers.
Storing materials in there would-
Back there, that would certainly help.
Yeah. I thought somebody had pulled out a code or regulation saying that, that they couldn't be permanent storage trailers. But again, they, as I understand it, under the last planning board, they allowed steel storage buildings out there, so. what difference does it make? Both of them look like that. They also allow, they're gonna allow sex shops out there.
Oh, this was in the original parking here. Right, that's all we go around this building pretty much.
I thought,
And then you had
I thought Wiki would be part of that.
One of the things in your ordinance is ingress and egress to the public way. And I don't know what those out there do.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
I would just say, it seems like there's a lot more going on between Brian and the selectmen than we're fully informed on, and we're dealing with one tiny piece of this, and how can we go forward with a site plan? We don't know the whole situation, and not all of it falls within our purview as a board, I understand that.
No, and that's understandable too, Steve, but, I mean, if you're looking at the site plan, which, you know, is about parking and screening, you know, that's definitely part of it, and screening would speak to visual impacts of whatever sort to the back property. Practicality weighs in because the terrain rises to the rear.
Right.
Once you get off Tenny Mountain Highway, you're rising above the front property. So, you know, like was mentioned, you'd need a 30-foot high fence, which it would completely block the office window. And, you know, there's a modicum of vegetative screening along the bank at this point, but it's deciduous, so in another couple of weeks, it would be sticks versus leaves. So all I'm trying to say about the separation there between, you know, agencies of who's, you know, owns the thing. You know, the whole enforcement effort and, you know, the definitions of junkyards and enforcement actions and things like that are, you know, they're background to the story, certainly, and certainly a part of it. But I don't think that there's anything statutorily that you can do at this board other than the screening aspect of it. Because, you know, if we're looking at state statutes, they do mention screening, you know, things not visible from the public way. And, you know, that's what turns on in public way, as you know, is any property that you can see into the other one. So because of all the different parameters here, that's why it makes it difficult to go with one, you know what I'm saying? And that's part of the enforcement actions that are ongoing at this point. You know, as George says, I'm visiting him all the time with suggestions on this and that. Most of it has been directed towards the impact on the abutters and not to the highway. So in order to get everything unified, the first thing to do was to say, well, there's been a change of use in the property. Let's get that on the table first. And the rest of it is not really sidebar to the conversation, because like I said, it's all like this.
Right.
But, you know, it doesn't mean that one solves the other, but there's certainly the mechanism here to mesh with any decisions.
Mr. Prentice?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
That you continue this meeting and make a site visit.
John?
Just a question. There was mention of some woods way out back, and if there is, and if they're on this property, and there's trees out there, is there any possible way that they could cut the trees down and put some of the parking out back, way out back, if they're just cars that are waiting to be authorized to be sold by the state or the town? That would be if they own that property, it would be a pretty inexpensive way of putting more parking out back and not having to worry about that right around the building.
Looks like it's on the slope.
He doesn't own any beyond the slope. The slope and the trees are actually on the storage.
Okay, so I think we need to move this along a little bit here tonight.
Hey, Steve, one more.
Yep.
Not to take Rebecca's line, but as far as like improving the, the plantings, maybe if it was coniferous instead of like deciduous, that might be a better barrier too. But if we could.
Between the
recommend
two
that,
properties.
Yeah, put some pine trees in to try to like act as a natural barrier. Anyway.
May I make a suggestion that, along with Mr. Prescott, that we do a site review? So somebody could actually see the property and see what it was like. It's part of our job, part of our mission, so forth.
Seems reasonable.
Okay, do I have a motion regarding this application? Anyone? Any brave soul? Well, for example, we could,
Well,
well,
Could
this,
I-
go
could
ahead.
I ask a question though?
Yeah.
Would it impact Mr. Kirk in any way if we put this off for the next meeting? As far as like, I know paving you can do until, into Thanksgiving or beyond, but, is there an expectation that this be resolved like now or?
I don't think, he's not facing any penalties at this point, is he, Brian? Or
No, one of the drop deads was actually filing and seeking a site plan review.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're all right with that. I would suggest that we do a site visit, maybe with the concerned parties, to try to figure out what the best solution is to the problem.
Very good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mr. Chairman, you're aware, of course, that if you go en masse, you have to call it as a public meeting.
Oh, yes, maybe specify a subcommittee. Up to-
Which isn't
Well,
to
that's
say
the-
that any of you couldn't go out there individually or as twos,
Right,
but if there's 3 or more of you,
yeah.
you're gonna have to take notes and it has to be posted.
I think that makes sense though. And if we want to do it while it's light enough out, so it would have to be prior to our normal 6:30 start of a meeting anyway.
Be
Yeah,
better.
and certainly that's a way to go.
Right.
Just post an earlier meeting and continue on that evening if you wish to go. Otherwise, you would have to go with the, noticing and all that stuff for the meeting that we normally do.
All right, so we can just make it part of a normal meeting and go there first.
Yes, because all the meetings are posted anyway.
All right,
So if you were to do it at the regular schedule, then that could be included, the altered time frame could be included there. If you want to do it quicker than a month from now, and certainly there's not a problem with actually posting it as a meeting.
okay.
Could we do it just prior to our work session at the beginning of November, so we're not making everybody wait a whole month?
I'd be up for that.
Yeah.
Because if you wait a whole month, you might be talking about 18 inches of snow, too. It's been October 31st, had one of the worst snowstorms on record a few years ago.
All right, so, do I have a motion to continue this application pending a site visit prior to our next work session, beginning of November?
Yes, I will make a motion that we continue this application and we conduct a site visit as a board just prior to our November work session.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. The next item. Find my agenda somewhere. Which I can't. Can I borrow yours?
Yep.
Okay, we have a site plan review, PID 214009 for Spirals Cafe, which is in the 9th State Building, out on the Tenny Mountain Highway, or where it sits Route 25 at that point. And this is the change of use. And the applicant is Lisa Adams. The planners states that the application is complete. Do you have any comments from the board about the application itself? Do I have a motion about the application?
I move the application is complete.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, so, are you here, Lisa? You want to get up and just tell us what you're doing out there? Please come up to the podium.
I want to open a cafe, a coffee shop and cafe for sandwiches in the front of the building at Night State, in front of Chris's building. So I want to put a kitchen in. It's just a sink. We're not gonna cook, we're just gonna make sandwiches. So it's the 3-bay sink for the state and the hand washing sink.
Does anyone have any questions to Lisa regarding the application? John?
Obviously, you have all the licenses and permits and fire code, you know.
I have my application for the state that is in Sharon. Sharon has that now. She hasn't been to do an inspection because I didn't realize I had to come here first to get the building permit to put the kitchen in first. So I need to wait, but I've sent in for all that stuff. So I have it all in the works.
So that's in progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's Sharon Wogan, the food and beverage inspector, not Sharon Tennant.
Is there going to be any cooking there?
No, we're just gonna make deli sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah, okay. And also coffee?
Yeah,
and
coffee.
so forth.
Phil?
There's going to be no connection within the building, right? You'll have to like exit like 9th State if you want to go around to get a coffee and a donut or something like that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. No, I was just wondering if.
Its
there
own
was gonna be
separate entrance and everything.
Yep. All right.
Signage? In the planner's report, she said there wasn't any indication about signage or your intent for a sign application. Had you thought about sign or?
Oh, I guess I'll answer that. We have a menu board sign.
Right.
So when she's building, he'll put up one there.
Okay,
And then she also gets a sign right by her entrance on the building.
okay.
And what are your hours of operation going to be, do you know?
I'm not quite sure yet. It's gonna be like mid-afternoon to early evening. Not too early, not too late.
Any questions from the board? Don?
I've looked at the sketches and so forth, but tell me where the location is. It towards the front of the building?
It
To
faces.
the side?
Are you familiar with the building at all?
Yeah,
Do you remember where Plymouth Chiropractic used to be?
yeah,
It's that. space.
okay.
Seeing no further questions from the board, we'll open a public hearing on this project. It is 26 after 7. Anyone like to speak in favor of the project?
I'll speak as the owner of the building. We're very excited to have Lisa there.
Please state your name, sir.
Oh, sorry, Christian Jakubowski. We're excited to have Lisa there. Our neighbors we've talked to, they're looking forward to it as well. And it should be a nice addition to the area.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition or of a neutral nature would like to speak? Seeing none, I close the public hearing at 7:27. I would entertain a motion from the board if there were no further discussion.
Is there an issue with screening or no?
Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Bolton?
No, the cooking's not that bad.
I move that we approve this application, pending any contingencies or that the planner might have, and approval by the state.
Second.
John? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Seeing none, it passes. We are down to correspondence. There's a note from Sharon on the North Country Council Transportation Shared Resources meeting on 10/28. I don't know if anybody has any information about that, but I think she sent an email around regarding that.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any new business tonight?
I just have one question. Why do they have a meeting of all of these various improvements on the roads and everything like that when the state of New Hampshire says that they don't have the money to do anything for the next 5 years? Just a general question. I think it's a waste of time.
Well, you just got a plan just in case Christmas does come. I think that's the,
5 years is a long time.
any other new business for tonight? Any old business? Do we have any comments from the public at this point?
Okay, goes for it.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
To adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.